got a late start making travel plans this year, so instead of heading back out west again, we planned a northern fall trip. Our first 2 night stop was in Cincinnati, where we browsed around both the Jungle Gym international markets. Our next destination was Elkhart, Indiana, which is known to be the RV manufacturing capital of the U.S. Pretty much all the factory tours were closed due to the COVID pandemic, but we were able to visit the RV museum and were able to sample some of the local Amish food. From Elkhart, we headed over to Dearborn, Michigan to go through the Henry Ford Museum, the Greenfield Village, and tour the Rogue factory that built all the Ford F-150s. Leaving Michigan, we headed east to the Finger Lakes area in upstate New York, where we dry camped at a museum while visiting family. Our next stop was in Alexandria Bay in the far northern part of New York, at a campground on the St. Lawrence Seaway, also known as the Thousand Islands area. There we planned on touring a couple of castles and exploring the area. From there, our next destination was Southern Virginia, where we dry camped again at another museum while visiting more family and even visited the Trump Winery. After a couple of days in Virginia, we traveled to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, for a couple of days there visiting with friends. Leaving Tennessee, our next stop was near Savannah, where we took a drive around Hilton Head Island, and then finally headed back home from there. All in all, this ended up being a 4,300-mile, 32-day trip. The first day of our trips heading up I-75 out of Florida is usually the longest, with a 400-mile, 7-hour drive up to the Twin Oaks RV Park in Elko, Georgia. But that also includes a self-imposed mandatory stop at the We're Nuts store just a few miles before we get to the campground. On day 2, we made a 250-mile, 4.5-hour drive up to the Chattanooga KOA. This was a campground we had never stayed at before and turned out quite nice. On day 3, we arrived at the Family Motor Coach Association in Cincinnati, Ohio, and because we're members of FMCA, we're eligible to camp at their campground 2 nights a month free. The main intent with staying in Cincinnati was to visit the Jungle Gym's International Market, which we did the following day. Before we went into Jungle Gym's, we decided to stop next door in a little restaurant. Denise decided this was her way of tailgating. Before we get started, here's a little background about Jungle Gym's International Market up in Cincinnati, Ohio. It started out as just a small produce stand in 1971 and grew into a 4,200 square foot produce market in 1975 in Fairfield, Ohio. It is now swelled into a 200,000 square foot facility with a second store in Eastgate, Ohio, both of which are suburbs of Cincinnati. They are so large that they provide maps for you to be able to find your way around inside them. These stores stock 180,000 items from over 75 countries. Each store is separated into basically several stores or departments, such as fresh produce, American grocery items, international foods, natural food, beer and wine, cigars and liquor, and other specialty sections such as a coffee bar, candies, toys, specialty sodas, syrups, honey, hot sauces, kitchen items, and many more. So I hope you enjoy the photos. We started out at the Eastgate store, and I thought that this was the original one, but the original first one was in Fairfield, and we'll go to that a little bit later on. And we'll talk about this photo later on here. First part is that's kind of like the health food products, and then this is a whole cheese section, and they got cheeses from all over the world. And then we get into the wine section, and they have a tasting bar there where you can taste all the different wines, and of course where all the cigars are. This is that's where all the beer sections are, and then you want a hamburger cake and chocolate gravy. That looked interesting, but we didn't try it. This is where the sodas are, and now you're getting into the hot sauce. This whole section is nothing but hot sauces, and some of them are so expensive they have them in a locked-up cabinet. And they got them for prices of $700 up to $1,700 for a bottle of this hot sauce. I can't imagine anybody paying something for that. $20 for Satan's blood was bad enough. Oh, you want some candied bugs? You get scorpions. Hey, they're fresh. You get 2 in a bag. Or you can go to tarantulas and oven dried and salted. Seafood, you got crab legs and lobster tails. And if you want them fresh, you can get them fresh. How about some hot sausage? And this is where all the honeys are. And candy. They were big on that Pez candy dispensers and stuff. And beer flavored jelly beans. I believe now we're over in the Fairfield store, which was the original one, and that's the one we intended to go to. Marinated bacon marmalade. Yeah, this is the Rhino entrance to the Fairfield store. Those bathrooms, what they did, they used the porta potties as the entrance to the bathrooms. I thought that was kind of unique. And then they have a place where you can take a picture of yourself sitting between them. This guy was singing some Elvis Presley songs, so I had to delete the audio off this section here. Then we get in where the jelly beans are, and this is Jimmy Buffett, all made out of colored jelly beans. And then back into the bakery section. And Amish-oriented foods. And we move into the ice cream section, and you see they got 150 different flavors of ice cream. And this is all syrups and honeys. And these are the international food areas where they have little areas segregated off of different countries. And this is some cold beer cups. I guess it's got a flavored mix inside for you just pour cold beer into it, and if you want it spicy. And on the international foods. And this is all hot sauces. Very much like what was at the other store. Now, if you like some the world's strongest coffee, now we get into the seafood section here, and I don't know what this lady was wearing off on the left out there. I didn't notice it after the picture, but look at the size of those lobsters. They are huge. And you get your live fish if you want to go fishing. And who the heck buys fish heads? $1.99 a pound. What do they do with them? I don't know what this represented. We saw this, I guess called a fruit from Guatemala, and I weren't quite sure what it was. It looked a little strange, kind of fuzzy looking. And we're back through the cheese section again. The next day we're on the road again, and headed up to Elkhart, Indiana. We had wanted to take several of the factory tours up there, but unfortunately they were all closed due to COVID. So we decided to take a ride around Elkhart and see the area and enjoy some of the Amish food. And also tour the RV Museum and Motorhome Hall of Fame. This is quite a large facility full of a lot of old RVs, some of them dating all the way back to 1913. Quite a few of them you were allowed to actually step inside and look around, but some of the really old ones, they had them blocked off where you could just kind of stick your head in and look inside. Well, that's a 1986 executive, and I guess it's probably the precursor to the executive that we have now. But this was top of the line back in its days. Now this one here was actually owned by J. Paul Getty, 1954 I believe it is, and I'm sure it was state of the art back then when he was riding around in it. Yeah, it's hard to miss the design of those old Winnebagos. This exhibit was full of old RV model toys, Some of those I've seen on eBay for like $300 a piece. This is more of the manufacturer's area where they had generators and engine components and other manufacturers of RV industry. I'm not sure what these old compact computers had to do with RVing, but it's interesting. Now, this was an interesting concept of somebody that thought about planning an RV hotel, literally where you drive your RV up on all the different floors and park it in there. Obviously, it didn't get off the floor. Now, here's an overview of the museum. This is the famous RV Hall of Fame and Museum in Elkhart, Indiana. And this is the library at the RV Museum. You can get parts catalogs, dealer books, how-to guides, manuals, photo albums. So what do they got over here? Recreational vehicle magazines, manufactured housing magazines, newspapers, newsletters. After visiting the museum, we decided to take a ride around the area and see some of the restaurants. In fact, we stopped at this Blue Cafe restaurant, and of course we had to go to another bakery too. Half a pie for $14. It was a little pricey. Now here's something I haven't seen in a long time. Milk actually come in a glass bottle. We spotted this gourmet popcorn store, and of course we had to stop and pick up some samples. This is an RV salvage place that was just across the border into Michigan, and we decided to go up there and see what they had. Spotted this trailer, people were towing all over the place promoting Trump. After we were there, we went to Monroe, Michigan, and we had planned to visit the Henry Ford Museum, and this place was about a half-hour drive away. It was a nice RV park, and it was just about empty. I was surprised. And the next day we head off for the Ford Museum. And unfortunately, the village that they have there had closed the day before. I guess they were getting it set up for Halloween, so we missed out on that. But we did go to the through this museum and the Ford factory tour. And if you're ever in this area, this museum is actually a must-see. It is fabulous. After we got checked into the ticket area and entered the main museum, there was this lady there, the blonde lady with the white jacket on, I guess. And she greets you and explains where everything is and the best way to get around the museum and that. Very helpful. We elected to head off towards the right down this long hallway, and that's where all the president's cars were. And all throughout the museum, they have these little maps on display where you can tell where you are and where you're going, where you want to go. This whole section is just for airplanes. This little area was simulators that you could operate, but you had to pay extra for that. And we have more of the president's cars. This is an interactive educational area for the kids. And then they also have a little cafeteria where you can get some decent sandwiches too. This steam locomotive absolutely has to be the largest train I have ever seen. It is huge. And of course, you gotta have a model train layout. I thought this was pretty neat. They had a simulated drag strip here where you could check your reflexes against the lights. We were able to catch the last tour of the day for the Ford Rogue factory tour. However, they won't let you take any kind of photos inside the factory itself. We were able to take some photos on the observation deck, and what they were pointing out there was this roof is all planted with grass. That's the living roof. They planted all that grass up there to extend the life of the roof.
Well, the river runs on an angle. It's a mile down there. And it comes
Yeah, blue building where they stamp out all the body parts and stuff.
the water with the concrete banks is the Rouge River. And it continues all the way up to Saginaw and up that way.
And kind of hazy, but that's downtown Detroit way off in the distance. Well, this is it for part one of our trip, and I hope you enjoyed the photos and they found this interesting. Part two will be out here shortly. You can check that out for the rest of the trip.